Baptist, this is about your spiritual journey.
That's right.
Which is really
That's right.
interesting. And by the way, well, very personal.
Yeah.
It reminded me a little of Gavin Newsom. He has a book here, and I was very surprised. It didn't look like his book. Had you read his book?
People bought my book. That's the difference between.
Okay, well, whatever.
Sorry. Was that mean?
I'm just saying, that's fine.
What's up, family? So let me break this down for you real quick, because JD Vance walks into Bill Maher's studio and he knows exactly what he's walking into. And he knows this ain't friendly territory. He knows the audience probably came in thinking one thing about him before he ever said a word. But that's the thing about a man who understands his position. He doesn't get nervous. He walks in calm. He walks in ready to speak truth in plain English. And that's what separates him from every other politician you've seen fumble around on a late night show. Bill Maher sits there representing everything the left thinks they stand for, open-minded, willing to hear both sides, middle ground, except Bill is starting to see through the noise himself. And when you watch that audience react, you see something real happening. People are applauding, not because JD is the slickest talker in the room, not because he's performing. They are applauding because he's being honest. He's not playing games. He's not apologizing for things he don't need to apologize for. And he's standing in what he believes and explaining it like he's talking to you at the kitchen table. And that's a master class right there. Now, Bill Maher hits him with the emotional play. You guys went too far. That's the argument that usually stops most politicians cold. They get scared. They start backtracking. They start apologizing for doing their job. But JD doesn't do that. He doesn't apologize. He doesn't back down. He doesn't play the game Bill is trying to set up. Here's the actual truth that everybody needs to hear. You cannot enforce immigration law without law enforcement showing up. You just can't. When law enforcement shows up to remove people from the country, things get confrontational. That's not a bug in the system. That's how the system works. That's the reality of what enforcement looks like. The whole icky video, quote unquote, argument that's designed to make you think the law itself is wrong. It's designed to make you think that if something doesn't look clean in a 30-second clip, then the entire thing is evil. So let me give you a simple example. If you arrest somebody for murder, sometimes that person resists. Sometimes the situation gets rough. If you take that out of context and record it without showing why that person is being arrested in the first place, it's going to look bad, real bad. But that doesn't mean murder shouldn't be prosecuted. It means law enforcement has to do its job. Now, 12 million people came into the interior of this country over 4 years. 12 million. That's not a small number you can ignore. That's a mandate. That's the American people saying we need to get control of this situation. The left wants you to believe you can have border enforcement without any friction, without any uncomfortable moments, without any situations that make you feel bad when you see them on the news. And that's a lie, and JD calls it exactly what it is. When you see outrage in the streets, when you see protesters, when you see liberals upset, that's actually proof the administration is doing their job. If there were no comfortable gray area moments, that would mean nobody's actually enforcing anything. You'll see zero pushback because nothing would be happening. And the fact that there's resistance means the work is real. Now, check out this clip, family.
You guys went too far. You went too far, and you should own it like you did childless cat ladies.
Okay. So here's the basic problem with that, Bill, is you cannot do any deportations without law enforcement. And you can't do a law enforcement operation like that without having some situations that don't look good when they're recorded like that. I mean, let me give you like just one obvious example. Let's just set aside the immigration element of this, okay? If you take a guy who's committed murder and you go in and arrest that guy, sometimes that person's going to resist arrest. Sometimes if you take a video of it and it's out of context and you don't appreciate why that person is being arrested in the first place, it looks pretty icky if you take that out of context video clip. And what I worry about is when people say you can't ever do immigration enforcement if it produces a bad video clip, what they're really saying is you can't ever actually do immigration enforcement. We had 12 million people come into the country, into the interior over the last 4 years, or I should say from 2021 to 2025. And we were elected with a mandate to get some of those people out of the United States of America. You can't do that easily. Law enforcement deporting people is never an easy process. So I appreciate your argument that we've gone too far, but we couldn't do nothing. And I don't think there was an easy way to do this.
Of course. There's a middle ground. See, the other thing that bothers us about stuff like that is that nothing ever lands in the middle, which is what I'm always trying to get people to do.
I thought you were a crazy liberal.
because you don't watch the show. You should watch the show.
I actually do watch the show. I laughed my ass off backstage. That was a good monologue. Even though you were making fun of me, I kind of liked it.
Yeah. It was fair. Yeah. I know someone in your administration who watches the show.
So there you have it. It's like common sense. I mean, if someone is breaking the law, do you really expect them to cooperate and follow the law? They should have followed the law in the first place and then come to the United States illegally. It's just common sense. I don't think there's no middle ground for individuals that want to break the law because they already knew what they're doing in the first place. And obviously, they're still doing what they want to do when they want to do it. And you have knuckleheads out there that obviously need to be held accountable. And that's just what it is. Now, Bill switches gears and brings up Iran, and he's trying to find a crack in the administration. He's trying to get JD to say something different from Marco Rubio, and that's how the media game works. They want chaos, they want infighting, they want to show division so they can run the headline, administration divided on Iran strategy. That's the play every single time, but that's not what's happening here. What's actually happening is the administration is unified, and they're playing chess. Everybody else is playing checkers. They're thinking 5 moves ahead, while the news cycle is still stuck on yesterday's talking point. And here's what people don't understand about the nuclear situation. The core issue is Iran's ability to enrich uranium. That's the threat. That's what you got to stop. And according to what we're being told, that capacity has been destroyed. Now, yeah, there's still enriched stockpile buried deep underground somewhere. I get it. But here's the thing. If they can't make it into a weapon, if they don't have the machinery to actually weaponize it, then what does the stockpile matter? It's like having money in a bank vault when the bank is closed and nobody gave you the keys. JD explains it plainly because it's plain. Either we get a deal that sets them back even further or we don't. But either way, we have leverage. Either way, America wins. And that's the position we're in. We're not sitting at the table desperate to make something happen. We're not trying to sign our names on something so we can tell the media we accomplished something. We are there with the power. Now, people are freaking out about validity. Iran strikes something, we strike something back, the news goes crazy. But that's normal when you're dealing with countries that have been basically at war for decades. You don't get peace without tension, and you don't get a deal without back and forth. You don't get movement without moments that make headlines. That's not a sign things are falling apart. That's a sign things are being negotiated. That's the reality of how this works. The real strength, and this is important, the real strength isn't in the smooth talk, and it's not about sounding good on a podcast or being the most articulate person in the room. The real strength is understanding what we hold, understanding that we hold all the cards and what we hold, and which that is we hold all the cards. So we're not the ones who need something from them because we hold all the cards. They are the ones who need something from us. Iran has been the state sponsor of terrorism for 47 years. 47 years. And we're coming to them saying, look, if you change, if you actually stop being a terror state, we'll open things up for you. We're offering them a way out. But if they don't take it, if they don't change, we're still in a stronger position than we were before we started talking. All right. So within that being said, that's leverage. That's power. This is what actual diplomacy looks like when you're not desperate and you're not trying to make yourself look good for the cameras. You stand firm, you know your position, and you don't blink. And that's what separates real strength from just talking tough.
This MOU is fundamentally, it says the straits are going to be open, the oil is going to flow. We're seeing that happen already. It's also a ceasefire, which, as you pointed out, is always going to be a little messy when you're dealing with the Iranians. But if we make the final deal, then great. If we don't make the final deal, their nuclear program is still destroyed. They're still much weaker as a country. So my attitude is America wins either way. But I do think that what the president has done is asked us to do something that, frankly, nobody in 47 years of dealing with the Iranians has done, which is offer them an opportunity to fundamentally transform how they behave with the West. They've been the largest state sponsor of terrorism basically since they began as a nation, or at least as an Islamic republic 47 years ago. He's saying, look, if they're willing to change, we're willing to change too. If they're not willing to change, we still fundamentally have all the cards, and I think it's a good place for us to be.
But their program isn't destroyed. The nuclear program isn't destroyed. I mean, I don't know any of our objectives. And look, I said
what part is not destroyed?
Well, we didn't get in there. The whole thing was we have to get in there and see, otherwise we wouldn't be doing this.
Well, let me say,
we didn't.
First of all, so a nuclear program, and I'm hardly a nuclear scientist, I'm a lowly politician, but the thing that you have to destroy is their ability to enrich uranium, which has been destroyed. You have to destroy their ability. Well, because you need functioning centrifuges that can actually
what was
spin.
all the
and we
talk
know
about?
that
We got to
they're
get
gone.
in there and we got to get the dust.
Okay,
and we
that's-
didn't get in there, so how do we get the dust?
So that's actually a separate question. So there's the highly enriched stockpile, which, by the way, was allowed to accumulate over 20 years of previous administrations. That enriched stockpile is something that we want to get. But, Bill, if we never get it, and the president wants it, and we are going to get it, but if we never got it, it's buried deep underground, and they don't have the ability to turn it into a nuclear weapon. So the program is functionally destroyed. We're just talking about, can we set them back even further through these negotiations? This MOU.
So there you have it. Bill tries to corner JD on the election thing, which comes up next. And that's the trap the media keeps setting, right? They want him to either say something wild that they can clip and run with, or they want him to back down and concede the whole argument. But JD does something different. So far, we have touched on the Iranian program. We have touched on basically the simple fact of ICE raids. And now he wants to touch on the election thing. So what JD does, when it comes to something different, he doesn't take the bait on all the easy targets, the Georgia recount stuff, the Pennsylvania numbers, all that. He sidesteps it completely and goes straight to what actually matters. Big tech censorship in 2020. This is brilliant because it's the middle ground Bill claims he wants. It's the conversation that should have happened but didn't, and it's true. Technology companies were literally censoring negative information about the left while promoting negative information about the right. That's not opinion. That's not conspiracy talk. That's documented. Even Mark Zuckerberg, who runs Facebook, has said that you still couldn't say the vid on Facebook, or you would basically be banned and erased, and your account would be no longer there because of the censorship that was being pressured for Facebook to do when it comes to talking about, the epidemic or the jabademic because of the Biden administration. So that's what happened. You can look it up. You can see it. News outlets refuse to cover other stories. Social media platforms shadow ban accounts. So you guys see it on the screen. Social media platforms like Facebook shadow ban accounts. They actively suppress information. The Hunter Biden laptop situation is the clearest example. That story was 100% legitimate. Journalists verified it, but it got buried. Mainstream media wouldn't touch it. Social platforms blocked it from spreading. Why? Because the timing hurt one side, because the content was damaging to one candidate. But here's the thing. If the First Amendment means anything, it means the American people get to see all the information before they vote, all of it. Not just the stuff that makes one side look good, not just the stories that fit one narrative. When technology companies and media outlets put their thumb on the scale, they're not just picking a side in an argument. They're breaking the system, and they're deciding what information you're allowed to see. And they're choosing your outcome for you before you even cast your vote. And that's bigger than any individual election. That's about whether democracy works at all. Now, here's where JD gets smart with the hypocrisy angle. He points out that Democrats have contested every single election they lost since Bush, everyone. But the moment Republicans question something, suddenly they are election deniers. Suddenly they are threats to democracy. Suddenly they are insurrectionists. The difference isn't who questions elections. Both sides do it. The difference is one side does it and then crucifies the other side for doing the exact same thing. So JD doesn't concede the argument that you have to accept every election result no matter what. He doesn't fall for that framing because that's not what's actually being asked of him. What's really being asked is simple. Will you allow a free and open debate, or will you censor people into silence? Will you let the American people see everything and make their own decision, or will you control what they're allowed to know? And that's the real question. You can see it hitting Bill Maher, and this is a guy who votes Democrat every time. This is a guy who has spent years criticizing the right, but even he's starting to see that the left has gone way too far. And when he sits there and says, quote unquote, my vote is in play, that tells you something fundamental has shifted. A lifelong liberal is saying the left has lost them, and that's not a small moment. That's everything.
Sir, as the country's top diplomat, do you not want more of a direct role in these talks, which have been, until now, really led by the vice president and
Well, but I think, like any, I think that's just a silly analysis. So the vice president is the second-ranking person in our government. It just shows you how seriously we take that endeavor. And we have a team of people that do work. I mean, I'm here today because they were overseas last week. We all have a role to play in this regard. So, I mean, I'm here. I've been here for 3 days. This is a key component of that. So, but that, I think that's a really silly question. The vice president the United States, other than the president, is the second most powerful person in our government. The fact that he's directly involved in this tells you the importance that our administration has given to this topic. So I think it's a very positive thing that he's involved in it. Fidelity about this process.
Let's just put a fine point on this question. How wide is the divide between you and the vice president
On what issue?
on any issue?
This
but
administration,
Iran
let me tell you something.
particular?
Everyone here is aligned behind the President of the United States, every single one of us. The President of the United States makes the foreign policy of our country. And our job, we obviously give advice, we give counsel, we give opinions, but when the President of the United States is the one who is elected by the people of our country to conduct our foreign policy, the President makes these decisions, and all of us on his team, every single one of us works in lockstep very closely with one another to execute on the President's foreign policy. Everything we do is because the President's made a decision that it's going to be done. And one of the things I'm very proud of, I can't speak for every element of our government because I'm not involved in other aspects of our government, but one of the things that I'm the proudest of is that when it comes to foreign policy and national security, we have no drama, we have no games. We have a group of people that work very well together and closely to execute on the President's directives, which is why I think we've had good outcomes and good achievements, and we're going to continue to have good outcomes and good achievements. Everyone has an important role to play, and everyone is playing that role and doing it in a collaborative process. And I think that serves the President well, and I think that serves the country well.
Of course, two of them are
On the
you.
discussions with the
Trump can't run again, and he'd be a little too exciting for me anyway. So it's either going to be you or Rubio. Here's my deal breaker for your side. Okay. Under Trump, you guys have two outcomes that an election can be. Either we win or they cheated. That shit has to stop. And the person who... And that means the person who has to stop it would be you or Marco. Can you tell me you will do that? Will you bring us back to the middle, at least on that, where we concede elections, where it's not either one of those two options?
Okay, Bill. So this is where I'm probably going to lose you here. But here's
That happened about 8 minutes ago.
Look, I don't think that we should not concede elections, but I don't think that's what's going on. I think that if you go back to the president's core argument, he was making an argument about problems that existed in 2020. And here's the problem that I'm most focused on. The president and I've talked a lot about this, and I think we share a perspective here, but set to the side the stuff that really gets you and your audience very angry about whether the count was legitimate in Georgia or Pennsylvania or any of these other states. Is it true that large technology companies, some of whom have financial interests that exist outside the United States of America, were they censoring information in the run-up to an election? And set to the side the stuff, again, the Georgia stuff, but
that was litigated. Dominion, the Fox News paid us.
Bill, I'm trying to make the more middle ground argument here. The biggest criticism I had of the 2020 election is that you had technology companies that were quite literally censoring negative information about the left and promoting negative information about the right. So in a fundamental sense, like if the First Amendment says that we have a free and open debate and then the American people judge based on that free and open debate, the sense in which I think the election in 2020 was rigged, I'm sorry, is that you had technology companies that were putting their thumb on the scale in a way that completely obliterated the real open exchange of ideas.
Well,
now, by the way, it didn't happen in 2024, but it happened in 2020 and it was a problem.
Well, you're going to get a big pat on the back when you go back to the White House. All right.
So there you have it in regards of that when it comes to Marco Rubio and JD Vance. So Bill makes his deal breaker clear. Republicans have to accept election losses. That's his line in the sand. But JD flips it perfectly. He asks us the obvious question. If that's your standard, why do you keep voting Democrat? Why do you support a party that's contested elections, that's pushed narratives about illegitimate results, that's done the exact same thing you're criticizing Republicans for? And the truth is both sides have issues when they lose. That's human nature. That's just how people are wired. When something doesn't go your way, you want answers. You want to know what happened. The difference isn't whether people ask questions. The difference is what you do about it and how honest you are about your concerns. But here's the shift that's coming. In 2028, like he mentioned, Bill Maher, Trump won't be on the ballot. That changes everything. The left's entire argument for the last 8 years has been Trump is the problem. Every scandal, every controversy, every bad thing that happens gets traced back to Trump. He's the villain in every story. But when Trump's off the ballot, that excuse disappears. If JD Vance is running on Marco Rubio and the Democrat is some AOC clone, Alexandria Ocasio Cortez, pushing full blown socialism, you can't just say Trump is crazy, so I'm voting Democrat. You can't call JD a racist when you watch them sit down and have real conversations with people who completely disagree with him. And you can't say Marco is a threat to democracy when he articulates, and he's articulate, I mean, and reasonable, as you guys seen in the clip. He's very articulate and reasonable and clearly willing to work across the aisle. The left has boxed themselves in because they made this about one man instead of about ideas. And when Trump's gone, they have to argue their actual platform against the Republican platform. And right now, their platform is no prisons, anti-capitalism, obsession with Israel, democratic socialism. And that's what they're running on. JD's stock is rising because he's showing people you can win them over by being honest, calm, and grounded. And that's real strength. And the people who've been told Republicans are all crazy are starting to wake up and wonder if maybe they've been listening to the wrong people. And that's what JD Vance showed you, as I want to show you guys in this last clip.
Like, if this is where the Democratic Party is going, where this democratic socialist, this obsession with Israel, with the Jew hating, with they don't believe in capitalism, no prisons, if this is where they're going, my vote is in play.
Okay.
And
I like to hear that.
It actually always has been. Every year, I don't make my decision by who was an R or a D. I actually always came to the conclusion that the Democrat was probably better.
Sure.
And voted for them.
Okay.
And Trump can't run again, and he'd be a little too exciting for me anyway. So it's either going to be you or...
So there you have it. And showing you this last clip, JD Vance showed you that, right? He showed you can be honest, calm, and grounded. And it connects to something written centuries ago. Proverbs chapter 15, verse 1 says it plain. A soft answer turneth away wrath, but grievous words stir up anger. That's exactly what happened on that stage. JD didn't go in there screaming. He didn't go in there trying to out yell Bill Maher or the audience. He went in there with a soft answer, not weak, not timid, but measured and grounded in facts. And it disarmed a room that was ready to dismiss him. Truth spoken calmly disarms people in a way that rage never will. Now, and if you're not spiritual, here's what that means in plain terms. Your brain is wired to listen to clarity, not volume. When somebody yells at you, your instinct is to shut down and push back. When somebody speaks to you calmly, even about something you disagree with, something inside you stays open. That's human nature. That's psychology. That's how people actually work. Don't be the loudest, be calmest. Don't win arguments, earn respect. Standing firm, staying honest, treating people with dignity, that's real power, and that's what changes minds. And that's what JD Vance demonstrated sitting in that chair with Bill Maher. Whether you're spiritual and you believe the proverb because God wrote it, or whether you just understand it because you watched how people actually behave. The lesson is the same. Soft answers work, calm works, truth works, and that's what we need more of, family. Spread the peace, love, and positivity. Let the love supersede the hate. Subscribe to the channel, join the family, turn your post notifications all on. And on that note, family, I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.